And ends with some hail. We'll show you damage from around the area.
Remembering former President George H.W. Bush. Tonight, reaction from across the country and here in the tri-state. And battling the opioid crisis with music. We'll show you how a local store is doing just that.
Breaking news alerts, tonight's top stories, and weather before the first commercial. This is Local 12 News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Megan Mongello here with meteorologist Paul Poteet. Obviously, if you were out and about today, you saw heavy rain and you heard the hail for sure.
Yeah, it was one of those days where you wake up and it's already nasty outside, and then it turned from just being wet to also being stormy. In between, some video sent to us by one of our viewers. This was taken on Elmont Drive, the Eastgate area. And if you look there, you can see the flooding that's on the driveway and on the home and also into part of the street. A lot of scenes like that around the area. We had a report just last hour, as a matter of fact, of flooding that had closed some of the streets right around the trail in the Loveland area because of flooding along the Little Miami River. At this hour, the rain has begun to lessen across the area, although we still have an area of showers just to the southeast of Cincinnati. Rainfall totals today, almost 2 inches. At last report from the International Airport, 1.86 there. Burlington, 1.82. Some pretty big amounts also just south of the river. Lunken Airport had 1.79, and in Hamilton and Mason, between about 1.5 inches and 1.75 inches. And as you can see, that heavy rainfall was widespread in the area. At this hour, we have that one shower to the east and to the southeast. Earlier, that had indicated a bit of thunder, but not at this time. If you want to see the rain and the thunderstorms that produced the hail here earlier, they're now moving into Pennsylvania and West Virginia at this hour. But still, back to the west, the weather is active, and they've had some severe weather tonight. Tonight's temperatures, those are holding into the 50s as we speak. Some of the warmest numbers of the day, 58 degrees in Cincinnati, officially 55 in Wilmington, and overnight tonight will only fall into the low 50s. A look at damage from tornadoes to our west and our 7-day forecast, Megan, all coming up.
Americans remembering former President George H.W. Bush. He died last night at the age of 94, 8 months after his wife, former First Lady Barbara Bush, passed away. Courtney Zabowski reports from Houston.
Around the world, people are mourning the death of former President George H.W. Bush. Flower wreaths were placed on the gates of the Bush home in Houston on Saturday, the day after he died here at the age of 94.
If there was any way to grant sainthood on someone, I think my father would qualify, just because he led with love in everything he did in his life. And he's such a great role model and a wonderful man.
President Bush lived behind these flag-draped gates. He was more than just a political giant. He was a beloved member of the community who you would see at baseball games, local restaurants, and charity events.
And he was like, yeah, come over and take a picture with me. You know, he was just a real normal person. It's going to be a great loss, but he's going to be with Barbara now.
Starting Monday evening, Mr. Bush will lie in state in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda.
Rain doesn't make a darn bit of difference.
Mr. Bush served as the 41st president for one term, from 1989 to 1993. Decades before entering the Oval Office, Mr. Bush led a life of public service as a World War II pilot, running the CIA, as a congressman, and a vice president under Ronald Reagan. At his inauguration, Mr. Bush spoke of new beginnings as the Cold War was starting to wind down.
The totalitarian era is passing. Its old ideas blown away like leaves from an ancient, lifeless tree.
In 2011, President Obama presented Mr. Bush with the Medal of Freedom, the country's highest civilian honor. As he is laid to rest, his life and legacy will once again be celebrated. Courtney Zabowski, CBS News, Houston, Texas.
President George H.W. Bush was no stranger to Cincinnati. This is video right here of him with Barry Larkin after throwing out the opening day pitch in 2003. As Brad Underwood tells us, he will not be forgotten by local political leaders.
And just moments ago, the ceremonial first pitch, and in town to toss it, the Vice President of the United States, George Bush, the old left-hander.
He threw out the first pitch in 1988 at the All-Star Game. He came back on opening day in 2003 to do it again.
He loved Cincinnati, and he loved Ohio.
That much was clear as President George H.W. Bush made many appearances in Cincinnati.
There was something about Cincinnati, you know, they like Skyline Chili, for one thing, and Barbara Bush particularly. They bought their hats, had their hats made at Bat Sacks downtown. In fact, I got them a hat from Bat Sacks about 5 years ago. I took up to Maine for them, and they were still wearing them, and until the end of their years.
Ohio Senator Rob Portman says Bush was a mentor and a friend. Portman worked for Bush as White House counsel from 1989 to 91, developing what would be a lifelong relationship.
I used to play tennis with him sometimes, and I was 30 years younger than him, and you would have thought maybe I might be able to beat him, but no, he always won. And it wasn't just because he was president.
Portman says he last saw Bush in September at the Bush home in Maine.
He always made you feel good. People liked being around him, but it was a really wonderful last opportunity to visit with him.
I think if the Democrats have the Kennedys, we have the Bushes.
Hamilton County Republican Party Chair Alex Triantafilou says he recalls seeing Bush at a rally on Fountain Square in the early 90s.
Makes it from a young fighter pilot to the White House. Just a very impressive man, a man of integrity, character, good humor.
But ultimately he knew it was about, how do you do things that help people.
For Senator Portman, he credits Bush for his political success.
Thank goodness. It was such a blessing that we had him as long as we did, and we have that legacy to look at as an example.
Brad Underwood, Local 12 News.
Former President George H.W. Bush will lie in state next week at the U.S. Capitol, giving the American public an opportunity to bid farewell. A state funeral is Wednesday morning at the Washington National Cathedral. His body will then be flown back to Houston for burial. New tonight, a man is under arrest accused of killing a woman in Florence. Police found 26-year-old Amanda Webster dead inside the Home 2 Suites Hotel this morning. 32-year-old Jesse James is at the Boone County Jail on charges that include murder and tampering with evidence. Florence police found him at the Rave Cinemas on Mall Road after employees called saying a man was acting strangely. Police later discovered James rented the room where Webster was found dead. They questioned him and he confessed. A local music shop is helping raise money to battle the opioid crisis. It's called Music with a Mission. Local 12's Christian Hauser shows us how the program got its start.
This is the third Music with a Mission concert at Third Rock Music in Anderson Township.
Third Rock Music has been so well supported through the local community, through Anderson Township and surrounding areas. We only felt, natural to give back. And so what greater way to bring music and a great cause together and do some good.
Folks watched as the first act started singing. The money's going to Harleys Against Heroin, a group that raises money for treatment centers that don't turn anyone away.
The money that we donate to these places help pay for those costs to get these people through the treatment that they need. And also the babies that are born addicted at Anderson Mercy. We've purchased items to help them.
Patton says the group started in 2014.
Everybody says, what can we do? How can we help? This was our way of helping. We wanted to get everyone to have their children back. Too many people's losing children, family members, friends.
She says Harleys Against Heroin will hit a milestone today. The group started the day $500 shy of raising $100,000 total. With the Mission concert, they'll top that goal.
We just feel that it's such a rampant epidemic in this area. We really loved partnering with them because they keep all the proceeds local.
The first Music with a Mission benefited Interparish Ministries Food Bank. Last year, the money went to Shepherd's Place after-school program in Bethel. In Anderson Township, Christian Hauser, Local 12 News.
The national opioid crisis is devastating families across the country. What can be done to curb the epidemic that's taken so many lives? That's the topic Sunday at 12:30 a.m. Join us for a special national town hall on Local 12. First Lady Melania Trump will join host Eric Bowling for this one-hour special event. Eric lost his own son to an accidental opioid overdose last year. Don't miss this important discussion. Your voice, your future, opioids, a national crisis. We had a lot of rain this morning, and it was a toss-up as to if the Fiona 1K walk would still happen. But the doors opened at 8 a.m. and look who showed up. 1,000 Fiona fans for the Baby Hippos walk. Now, Fiona has hit about 1,000 pounds, which is extraordinary since she was under 30 pounds at birth and the smallest hippo ever to live. Tickets were $29 in honor of how much Fiona weighed almost 2 years ago. All the proceeds will benefit the animals at the Cincinnati Zoo. Still to come, how a local group is helping children in need have a good Christmas. Plus, we hear from George H.W. Bush, White House's photographer, as he shares the best memories he has of the former president.